This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Okay, everybody, hello. Welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. You guys know what we do here. We talk about marketing tips, we talk about business tips, and we assist you guys in your business journeys. And you know me, the host, Daniela, Penji's partnership coordinator. And today we have a really cool guest, Ryan Scully. Hi, Ryan. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm doing well. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. I'm so excited to talk to you about the podcast. But before we kind of dive into all things business, marketing, all of that, I want to play a game with you called Build It or Scrap It. So it's, a really easy game. But right now, I'm just going to give you some prompts and I want you to just tell me if you would build them or if you would scrap them. Okay?
Okay.
Green walls and bathrooms.
Build it.
Tiny home villages.
Crap it.
Glass floors at the top of high-rise buildings.
Absolutely scrap it.
Buildings shaped like their function. So, for example, like a fish market and the building is shaped like a fish.
Scrap it.
AI generated concepts like building maps.
Build it.
Windowless office buildings.
Scrap it. Absolutely.
A then only floor in apartment buildings. So like a floor with no phone, no internet service type of vibe.
I'll build.
Awesome. Yeah. No, that was great. I'm curious why you want to scrap the glass floors on high-rise buildings, because that's
I
already
don't like heights that much.
that people have already done that. And I think it's a very popular tourist attraction in these like really popular, really high buildings to go.
Yeah. I hate walking on that stuff. That freaks me out.
I get it. Me too. I did it.
My
So
primitive brain just freaks out too much.
I don't know if we've done. I went to the building in Seoul in Korea,
Yeah.
and they have like a whole bit that is just glass floor there, and it was like the thing is I had been on glass floors at other places, but that one in Korea for some reason just really freaked me out because it was also super high. It was like on the 120th floor or something like that. Like
Yeah. No, thank you.
yeah, one quote
You
because
can't
it might.
roller coasters either. So,
I
it's
don't
not the
remember
thrill.
what the height was, but it was so high, and I just like looked down and like I felt like I was gonna die. It was creepy. I did not enjoy that.
Yeah. I understand.
Well, Ryan, it's been so great to kind of get to know you a little bit. But for all of our audience who is watching and is not sure about what you do, who you are, um, what everything that you do is all about, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and everything that we got to know?
Yeah. So I am the VP of creative for WBTDP, which is a combination of two companies. The first of which is Warsaw Blumenthal, which started in 1982 as a retouching business. And it has morphed over the years into more of a creative concepting and storyboarding business, like illustration repping business. And then around 2009, we started a company called Turbo Dog Productions that really focused on the next steps after storyboards and still frames of art. And it worked into the production and animation of those for animatics and testing and any video content. And then 2020, 21, something like that, we merged the companies, and that's why we have Alphabet for a company name. So those two companies now operate as one entity, and we take the consumer from creative concepting, from script, all the way through to their finished production if they want. oftentimes we really focus on that creative concepting part and do kind of a best in class animatic for focus group testing.
What I'm really interested in is like when I was doing research on you guys, like you said, like you had like the whole alphabet, like WB plus A like
Yeah. Workshop
TVB.
1 and plus
Yeah.
to run just
Yeah,
merge.
it was like together. And I looked at like kind of the work that you had and it was really beautiful. I'm curious because a lot of it looked very cinematic to me. But
Mhm.
then I saw, like, for example, on your Instagram, you had for Pizza Hut, you had been doing, like, some stuff for Pizza Hut, and it was clearly for an ad for them, like a commercial. Um, what I wanted to ask you is, what is the difference between, like, doing something for, like, say, like, a movie? Obviously, I mean, the purpose of a movie is different than a commercial, but, in terms of, like, the actual, like, the storyboarding and the image and the aesthetic and all of those things that you work on, um
Mhm.
what is that difference when you're doing something with a marketing purpose, like an ad, like a commercial or something, versus like if you were gonna be just doing cinematography for a movie? And why just the former?
We actually don't get involved in film hardly at
Okay.
all. Every now and then someone will approach us for that. Uh, there's a difference between like a pitch board and like storyboarding and animatics for creative concepting for a commercial. That's one camp. And then for a film, that's a separate camp. And the film camp, that would be more for figuring out how the director sees the shoots happening, and it's really for planning their shoots. So the storyboarding and creative concepting for that would be about building and planning for a production that's already has a budget. Really, when we're doing this for advertising agencies, this is for trying to get the budget. This is a sales tool. Really, they're coming up with strategy and script. They're coming to us to have it fleshed out into into visuals so that they can sell through the creative concept. Once that's sold through in a baby step, then it goes to testing to see if it really works. And I think of testing as sort of an insurance policy for major Fortune 500 brands so that they know when they're going to spend their millions of dollars on media buy that it's going to be worth it.
That's so interesting that you guys are kind of like when you're coming up with these concepts and these ideas and all of this, it's always within mind that you want to convince someone to give you budget for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a budget for creative concepting, but ultimately they're trying to get, you know,
More.
$1 million+ to go shoot the commercial. And then who knows how much after that to put it on air. So the total budgets for these commercials are enormous. And especially if you take the entire year into, into that, into your mind of, you've got an entire strategy for uh, dozens of commercials, potentially 2 or 3 different creative streams, and they all kind of have to work in a cohesive way so that you have
Yeah.
a creative vision for your brand and that your brand has a reputation and it doesn't feel like 6 different brands. So there's a lot of strategy behind it. And we're a part of that to bring it to the customer.
That's so interesting. And I also noticed that you guys are like one of the companies that has really embraced artificial intelligence. Now, I think when I talk to different business owners for different sort of like agencies, um, some of them are very open to AI, some of them are very resistant. I definitely feel like people in tech, people in software, people in that sort of realm tend to be a lot more open into AI because I guess they're in the space. And you guys are a company that I've noticed are very, very like open to embracing that wave that is happening right now and adapting to AI and adding it to all of your creative concepts. Um, has that sort of changed anything in how you like create something? That creativity flow is different. I've seen ads that you have like, like concepts that you guys have had on your social media that are just 100% AI. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm curious as to how that has been affected or changed by with this wave because we didn't see ads like this in the past.
Right. So a lot of that, what you're seeing, even though they look potentially like a finished spot, those are still testing spots. The testing spots are really getting tighter and tighter and closer to the final. In another 5 years, they might be the final. Um, but I mean, to answer your question, AI really hit our industry in, I don't know, 2023. And our CEO, Andy Kessler, had a, had a little coming moment. He had to take a look at it, and him and I sat down and we really tried to figure out if this was something that's going to stick. And at first, it just seemed like kind of a gimmick, and it didn't really work, and maybe it was like a little funny thing. And shortly, I mean, within a couple months, it became very, very real. Um, and we noticed that our customers were using it, and we noticed that our artists were freaked out by it. So I took a team of people, and over about a 6-month period, we did a deep dive. I didn't take on any actual productions. I was completely siloed, and we did a deep, deep, deep dive into AI and what it could do for us, and where our, blind spots were with it. And we came up with a custom pipeline, both for 3D animation and for 2D animation, using the AI tools that were available, in creating kind of like a better mousetrap. We're still using the artists that we represent. We find them incredibly critical. They take the brief, they do the drawings, and then we have an AI team that then takes that and pushes it to the next level. So instead of animating in After Effects, we're animating in AI. Instead of spending 6 hours on a drawing, the artist can spend 2 hours on a drawing, and then we'll enhance it, or we'll treat it differently. We can change the styles, we can change the color grading. There's a lot of tools there for the AI team to use. And they're able to take that creative concept and then bring it to pretty darn close to what a finished production would look like. So,
Do
yeah,
you,
it's changed a lot.
do you think it's a valid crash out for artists to be scared of AI taking over jobs?
Totally. I get it. I'm an artist myself. I have a MSA in painting. I mean, I'm as much of an artist as anyone. And when it first came out, it was definitely like a personal threat. It was like, hey, I just spent my entire life drawing and learning how to use tools and being an expert at these things.
Yeah.
And suddenly this thing's doing it better than I am. Yeah, it was definitely a real threat. And I manage a team of artists and animators, that kind of thing, but I also get my hands dirty. I'm not a standoff person. And when I started first deep diving into AI, it really changed how I thought about making videos and how I thought about making images on a kind of a philosophical level. And it definitely flexed my brain a lot. And I had to spend a lot of time and resources on figuring out how this is a new tool for me. And it really did. It drastically changed how I make work. And I think the artists that have been pushing it away, I hate to say, but I think that they're going to suffer from it. And I think the artists that have really embraced it are going to take a lot of the work. The artists that I've seen that have really, said, okay, here's a tool. It's a new tool for me. I'm going to jump in on it. And they combine it with the tools they have. They are like rock stars right now. I mean, they're getting all the work, so.
Yeah. So I think like what I've seen I've talked to so many people who are super, super pro AI. And when I talk to them, like they'll even convince me, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, like AI. But then I always once the conversation, the heat of the conversation is over, and then I'm thinking, I realize like, I don't know how it feels, because it's complicated. I think I understand from the progress standpoint why you would want to embrace AI. It's a new technology, and it's just new. You have to learn how to sort of adapt to it the same way that we adapted to cameras and movies, and when we switched from DVDs and Blockbuster to streaming services, like whatever change happens, but like it's different. But I also feel like the thing with AI is that it's, you're right, it's replacing a lot of human effort. But then I don't know how to feel about that sort of like meeting that sweet spot of being able to still add your own input to it versus also embracing that new thing that can do it really well for you. Um,
Yeah.
One thing that I think is concerning, I don't know if you agree with this, is that we get it to a point where the AI does it so well that it's going to render humans useless. I think that's the biggest concern I think that I have would be like,
I
what's the point of having artists and or creators or anything if your AI is going to do it a much better job? Why would you even bother learning this?
I think that there will always be a use for the hand-drawn artist. We use them in every project. They have not gone away. They're still critical to our projects. Really where we've seen it is that instead of hiring an After Effects animator artist, that person is now using AI tools. Sometimes they're mixing them with the After Effects, but I found that when an artist that really knows their craft prior to AI then adopts AI, they just become more powerful. They become better at the thing they're doing, and they can bring that thing to a higher level than they ever have. I do think that a lot of artists will lose their jobs. I'm not going to lie. There's no way around it. We've already seen a lot of the storyboard projects that we normally would have got that are just two, simple storyboards for a pitch. A lot of that stuff stays in house now because the art director's doing it.
Yeah.
50 years ago, the art director probably would have drawn their own storyboards though. So those things got moved over to the artists and now they've gone back to the art director. At some point, the art directors are going to say, hey, this is taking up a lot of my time and I'm in meetings all day. I can't sit around prompting. That'll probably go back to the artists eventually. But I do see, and I can't tell the future, but there's a point when these animatics that we're producing are going to be really pretty much the finished spot, and there won't be a need for a shoot. So when you have a project that, you're concepting 10 ideas, put them all into testing, pick, the top scoring 5 or so and put those on air immediately. So you will have a shorter lead time. You'll be able to respond to current events faster. There's a lot of promise there. And I think that big brands will totally embrace that. As long as they don't get, backlash from, general society about it. There is that out there in the world. And I think that, the backlash of AI as far as being intellectual property theft and all that kind of thing, that's outside of my expertise and, understanding. I think that there's a lot of that going on, but that's kind of words to figure. I don't want to be left behind. So I'm embracing it, whether I like it or not. Because that's
it is what it is, right? Like again, the ethical debate.
I didn't invent it, but it is. Now I got to figure it out.
Yeah, I think the ethical part of it is also just like a whole nother complex thing that is happening of people being like, oh, like the property thing or like the effort thing. For me, I mean, I just think of when a machine came in like during the Industrial Revolution and people's jobs in factories were to like put like caps on toothpaste, like in Charlie and the Chocolate. Like, have you seen that movie? Like the factory and the guy's job, like the dad's job gets replaced by a machine and it's really dramatic and sad. And I'm like, well, like, did you really want to have that job in the first place? Like, it's, I get that, like, like for like low income, like there's like a whole societal and ethical conversation about it. But I think you can definitely argue that you can always allocate the strength of someone into a like given different focus. And I think that's kind of just what's going to happen with AI is that a lot of people, artists especially, I think, are going to have to sort of learn how to be creative in different ways and place that strength in different manners that are not what has been traditionally done, like you said. But
people had been painting and using dry mediums and that kind of thing, or traditional mediums for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden the camera came out, and then Photoshop came out, and then 3D software came out, and those artists have sort of migrated and dispatched amongst all those tools. I think AI is one of those tools. Like, I don't see a bunch of account people and number pushers making commercials in the future. It's still going to be artists, but they won't be drawing things. They'll be, creative concepting in a new way.
We'll see. I mean, I don't know. I think it depends. The economy the government laws, they're gonna either stop that progress or
I don't
continue.
think, I think the cat's bag. I think it's just,
Yeah, it's probably gonna be hard. I think it's like it's too difficult right now to be like
or
stop
I
AI.
I would say that there are a lot of ad agencies that we've had chats with every head of production you can think of. And there has been a major hesitancy towards recommending anything AI for a live broadcast because of the intellectual property issues, the fact they can't own it, that kind of thing. Um, it hasn't stopped a few brands from putting out a piece of notes. There was one from Volvo, of course, Coca-Cola put out some, but I'm never really sure if those are more of like a gimmick thing or if this is really the way they're going forward. Was that a one-time thing to get attention in a news headline, or is this how they make commercials going forward? I don't know. Um, and if so, then it's going to be a tidal wave, but
I think an interesting.
the ROI is just so gigantic,
I think the big question for me is, are we even going to be doing commercials? I think you're a great person actually to answer this. Is sometimes I wonder if commercials are still going to be a thing in a few years.
I do. Yeah. I mean, people
really,
talk about commercials dying off, but I see more commercials now than I ever did because there's a commercial before every little 10-second news clip, there's a
yeah,
ton of media out there. And brands have to get their voice out. The difference between Charmin toilet paper and, Colted Northern toilet paper is your brand feeling. When you go to the store, which one do you pick? I mean, the same thing. It's toilet paper.
the
And
cheaper
it's
one
which one
probably.
makes you feel cozy, and it's because of the media. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious because like I feel like the traditional idea of a commercial is gonna go away. 'Cause I genuinely still consider like I think a lot of the advertising that we kind of have to take right now as consumers is a lot through like influencers,
Sure.
social media, like ads and stuff like right? Like that's where we get most of our ads. Whereas
Yeah.
before it was like you're watching a TV show and then you get the commercials or like listening to the radio and then the commercial break. Um but now it's like at the top of the YouTube video, you're getting the ads. You're scrolling on Instagram and you get the sponsored posts and the paper clips. But uh, I think like it's just that the nature of the commercial and the ads has changed. I certainly still see a lot of like the type of commercials that you would see on TV when I was a kid, for example. But I think it has sort of changed it to like I think I see a lot of brands moving towards UGC, like more like social media esque type of
Sure.
content that appeals to that kind of format to that adapts to like what an Instagram reel would look like or what a TikTok or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, do you think combined with AI, is that going to affect your industry or has it already affect your
No, we
industry?
we do that as well. So, we produce everything from a 60-second spot, 90-second spot. Your pharma ads are huge because they have all these disclaimers. Um,
Yeah.
all the way down to 6-second spots. So and a lot of times you'll do a handful of 30 seconds, some 15s, and then maybe a cut down to a 6. And they want to test all that stuff. We've done work directly for Facebook for their brands. It was interesting that this is a while back, but when the creative department at Facebook first started, they were doing ads super cheap, really just trying to get brands to recognize their platform as valuable. So they would do creative for the brands at Facebook. They would hire us to do it and then, put out unique ad campaigns targeted towards very specific audiences, let's say like one region in Europe or something. And they would get huge feedback and enormous numbers out of it. Whether or not that moved the sales needle, I don't know. I'm not privy to that. But, does 3,000 likes on Facebook count as income? I don't know. You know, um, I'm not sure if that, moved the needle at all on how many units they sold. So, but I mean, there's a lot of ads on social media. There's still a lot of TV ads. Um, what I think that AI will do is that it will lower the boundary for putting an ad out there. Like I said, I really do think that at some point the animatics that we're producing, it's going to come out of concepting. They're going to spend a little more time on them, but not a full shoot worth. those ads will be able to go right to the consumer, which will open up their budget. So let's say they got a budget of $100 million. Instead of producing, a handful of major ads, TV ads, and then trickling down to all the different channels, they're going to just be able to micro target things. They're going to say these TV channels or these social media feeds or whatever it is, they'll be able to identify what their actual consumer is in a more detailed way and make creative for that. And instead of making, 10 really huge expensive spots, they'll be able to just pour spots out, So I think the increase in creative is probably going to go up for any brand that, wants to tap into that.
I know that brands still want to be a part of like big projects where they can put ads to. I heard that like, I don't know who told me like Super Bowl advertising is super coveted, but also really expensive.
Yeah, we did a couple this year. We did the Budweiser ad this year with the Clydesdale horses, and it's funny when we get those jobs for we do usually 1 or 2 a year for Super Bowl. They're never part of like the main ad campaign, so they're always like this little side project. They're fun to work on, but it's always just 1 spot or 2 spots that they test, and they're exciting. They're not usually big budget on our end. The main ad campaign for the year, that's the big budget. You're talking your entire year's advertising. But the Super Bowl spot's always kind of, it's endearing and it's fun to work on. But,
That's interesting. I don't know. I always thought that like someone told me that like the Super Bowl spots were always like super important. Everybody wanted them, and
sure, they do. Yeah, they're a good badge, for the creatives, and the ad agency gets a lot of kudos for it. But it's just one commercial. When we do work progressive, we'll do 12 in a quarter.
No, it depends.
Yeah, they're putting out so much more content than one commercial. It's just enormous how many commercials they do.
And also, like, I think people like Super Bowl commercials are like commercials that are like about regional holidays are only going to appeal to an American audience. So if you have a business that is strictly within the US, I mean, that's fine, that it's going to work. But I think a lot of like the bigger businesses are also going to want to target their international clients and audiences. So they have to sort of put budgets into more than just the US holidays, if that makes sense, or that's like kind of what I think.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of international work. We did a major project for Listerine a few years back where we did a section of their commercial, and then every time it went to a new location, the creative changed based on what that location's, sensibilities were. And then we would adapt our demo spot for that. So it was just the gift that kept on giving. You start one project, you do, 3 little demo sections where the tooth gets cleaned and stuff. Before you know it, you've done 30 of them, because it just keeps traveling around the world. And even after it's changed ad agencies, you're still like kind of the.
Yeah, no. And I think people underestimate how much marketing changes from one region to another.
Something that gets really detailed because you have laws that dictate on how you can
advertise.
Are there 3 germs left? Are there no germs left? That kind of thing when the Listerine rinses, that kind of thing.
I don't know if you remember, like a few years ago, I remember seeing Disney getting a lot of backlash for having a specific ad about a movie, like they're promoting a movie, or maybe a TV show. Don't quote me. It was some kind of entertainment that they were doing at Disney where they had like 2 lesbian moms. And they were kind of like embracing it as like, we're being inclusive and like the lesbian moms and all this in the West, like specifically in like Canada and the US and Europe. But in like the Middle East and I believe in Africa, and I don't remember what other places, they were not doing that. They were doing a straight couple with a kid.
Oh, they made versions?
Yeah. And they were the advertising was also different because I remember like the Middle East one and like all like for the conservative countries, I guess, it was different. Like the advertising was just very much like a traditional royal family. And then with the American and European version, you had like this sort of more progressive view. And they were
Mhm.
getting backlash because they were like, well, if you're going to commit, just like do it with everybody. Like, why are you showing a different one in this? And I was like, well,
I
you
think
know,
they want money.
I was like, well, yeah, they obviously want money. They want to appeal to
Yeah.
all audiences because they know that if they show this in the in the Middle East, they're going to get a lot of backlash. But also,
We just won't be able to show it. I mean, it
yeah,
would, yeah, yeah,
I was also inclined to believe that probably they were having laws that were preventing them from doing that in the Middle East and other African countries
yeah,
versus like in America, they were probably going to get people complaining, but it wasn't against the law.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know what the laws are over there. I'm assuming it would just be frowned upon, but I don't actually know. That sounds like a purely business decision of like, I want to make money in these regions and I have to like, cater to their sensibilities. But
Yeah.
I, I don't know. I don't, I think it's
No,
lame.
I, I
You
think
know,
to me, it was just a blatant difference in
yeah.
advertising.
I mean,
Because
it's lame to have like a set of values that your company.
yeah, I mean, I think to me, it
Fine.
would have made more sense to just, you can't fully commit, then just like don't do the lesbian moms at all. From a
Yeah.
business standpoint, that would have probably been my choice to just do the straight couple and that's it. Nobody's gonna complain about that, right? But I think it really kind of shows how people sort of want to change their advertising so much and depending on the regions.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a business decision because they could have also just chosen to not show that in the Middle East at all, and then problem solved. But
I mean, the way I think about the micro targeting is like, if there's a channel that mostly grandmas are watching and you want to sell Skittles to them, you're going to make your creative a little different than
yeah,
if you're playing, late night cartoon central, Comedy Central or something. And it's like a bunch of teenagers watching it. You're going to
yeah,
market differently. And even show to show, if it's a more male dominated audience or a more female dominated audience, I would think that same Skittles spot could be created differently for those groups.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, when it comes to like cultural sensitivities, that's a whole nother,
I know it's
thing.
so
Yeah.
complicated.
Yeah. It's complicated. But with AI, you could ideate very quickly. You can produce very, very quickly. And the cost to get that production out is super tiny compared to a full shoot,
Yeah,
which is month planning, enormous costs on set, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, it's going to go that way. It's a matter of when. Um, so yeah, I'm curious to see when that happens and how it happens.
no, yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
I think it's going to piss people off. The unions are
Well,
going to be frustrated.
everyone gets pissed off when stuff like this happens, and then they sort of kind of figure it out, or just kind
I
of
don't know. It hurts when it hits the arts because those are people's passions and that's
yeah,
people's,
art.
their journeys in life and that kind of thing. I get it. It's, someone loses their, accounting job, they're going to be pissed because they went to school for accounting. It's, I
Yeah,
guess,
for
if we got
sure.
rid of taxes, for instance, there'd be no more, tax accountants.
Yeah, no, I know that it's like, I think people are gonna still adapt. I genuinely don't feel like AI right now, at least, maybe in
I
the
don't
future, is at a place where we can
I
genuinely
worry about I worry about that industry shrinking. I don't think it'll go away. I mean, theater
yeah,
didn't go away because of film, but it definitely shrank.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely shrink. That's what I think is gonna that makes more sense because I feel like also, um, I have had AI sort of write stuff for me, like
mhm.
articles or stories and stuff like that, and I think it'll do a decent enough job. Like, sometimes it'll do a pretty good job, but there always comes a moment where I feel like the AI starts to talk in circles.
Yeah, it's smart. Yeah. I find that with writing, I don't know, for me,
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm an artist. I'm not a writer for, that much, but, when we do any sort of writing as a company, we'll usually either start with AI as just like a general layout. And then there's a lot of human editing.
Yeah, I
And then,
think we're
or
still
sometimes it starts with a human writing out their ideas and then we feed it into AI just to kind of clean it up, act as an editor, really.
yeah,
And then
that's
we
how I
find,
feel like AI that's why I mean, like, I feel like AI is still not 100% there.
no,
Um,
no, I mean, it probably shouldn't be.
but I also see, like, AI generated animations and images, and sometimes they're weird. Like, I
Yeah,
still see, like,
tricky.
the motions being like this, the eyes creepy, and I'm like, like
But
you still need
this
to.
is the worst it will ever be. And it just started 2 years ago. So
That's actually kind of scary. That when you put it that way, I mean, it's actually pretty good for the amount of time that it's been out.
yeah,
And
it's accelerating so fast that as our team, we did, like I told you a couple of years back, we dedicated a big chunk of time and resources towards figuring out how we can rebuild how we make productions, how we go from storyboards to finished animation. And every few months, there's another giant treasure trove of AI, you know, releases or updates that we then have to go back to the drawing board, figure out if they're worth pursuing. Because there's a lot of hype around AI. There's a lot of like people saying, "Oh, this is going to change everything," and then you go and use it, and it's like, it's like 2% different.
yeah,
So we have to go through these pretty relentlessly and just kind of figure out if they're worth pursuing, and then figure out how we should implement those into a new process. So just in the last couple weeks or last week, there were a bunch just launched, and I haven't had a chance to pick through them. My team is currently doing that, but I haven't personally been able to. But it will probably change how we, it'll probably change a couple steps in our process. I'm hoping it will, because there's a few like things I would like changed. We've been reaching out to some of the AI platforms, asking them if these changes are coming, because there's some, blind spots in their process that we would like changed. They've assured us that they are. We also have our own custom software that we use through a platform called Comfy UI. It's custom software. It's like a custom workflow, and it allows us to take all the open source pieces and jam them together and make a new program, really. And that has helped us solve some of the problems that just aren't available on consumer apps yet. So
I think it was pretty cool. And it's also a really great way to end this podcast on. We're giving you some questions about AI. But Ryan, it's been so great to have you. And before we finish, I do want to give you the space to promote anything. If anything we spoke about today resonated with our audience and they would like to go and find you,
Sure.
this is yours.
Yeah. So our company is called WBTDP.com, and we specialize in animatics for testing. We do anything that's going to go to a focus group that would come through us. We work with most of the major ad agencies, most of the major holding companies. We've been around for 40 years, and we are kind of the best in class for our market. It's a small market of handful of companies that do what we do, but we are, probably the premier one in New York. So
Awesome. And I will be adding those links to the description of this video so that people can access them easily. And
great.
thank you so much for being here today, Ryan.
Thanks, Daniela. Appreciate your time.
Have a great day, everybody. I will see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.